What's up everyone, this is Colin from Ireland's Technology Blog, and this is the HTC 10. It has some great specs and some nice design features, but does it have enough under the hood and in terms of design to make you want to part with your hard-earned cash over some of the other flagship smartphones on the market today? Stay tuned and all will be revealed in the HTC 10 review. Welcome back. So this is the HTC 10 review. The HTC 10 is obviously the follow-up from the HTC M9 or HTC One M9, which was the last version, and it went down pretty well with the consumers. But I think again people thought that maybe there just wasn't enough difference between it and the M8 to warrant their cash in terms of upgrading to it. And I think people will, for the most part, probably find that the HTC 10 is kind of a similar situation. So in terms of design, the 10 is it's a 5.2 inch display. Again, it's an all metal body, so the first thing you'll notice is that it's cold when you pick it up, but it is all metal. The sides are they're squared at the sides, so it does give you that little bit of extra grip, which is nice. So as I said, 5.2 inch display, and that is approximately 565 ppi, so that's very good, very clear, and it is a vibrant screen, so it's the blacks are quite black. It's very nice in that regard. Other features, on the right hand side, then you've got your your power key, you've got your volume rockers, SIM tray there. Left hand side, you've got another tray, let's just call them trays. On the top you've got your speaker, and on the bottom, on the top you've got your micro or your headphone jack, 3.5mm jack. On the bottom you've got your USB type C and your speaker. The speakers are quite good. It's not boom sound like in past versions of the device, but it is still quite good nonetheless. On the back it is simple, very typical HTC One. So you've got just the branding, nice and simple. You've got your 12 megapixel rear camera, and you've got your flash, laser autofocus as well, so dual flash and laser autofocus, which we'll come to in a minute. On the front you have this camera here, so you've got your front facing camera, which again is quite good. It's a 5 megapixel f1.8 aperture, and it's got OIS built in, and again larger pixels there as well. So the front selfie cam, as they're sometimes called, is actually quite good for selfies. So I know a few people who will be quite pleased with that. And again, the rear one also has OIS built in, so that's going to help with low light shots, although surprisingly it's not as good as you might think in low light, but overall it is quite good. But we'll come to that. So in terms of power and what's actually running the device, you've got 4 gig of RAM on board and a Snapdragon 820 processor. So that coupled with the Adreno 530 means that playing games and doing regular activities, you're not going to find any hiccups in terms of speed or anything like that. So all good on the horsepower, so to speak. There are 2 variants, so there's 32 and 64 gigabytes of storage, and you can augment that then up to 200 gigabytes if you can fork out that much for a micro SD card. So this is Sense 6 basically, or HTC's latest Sense ROM, and it's pretty true to stock Android, but there are some differences. Obviously, when you hit things like the menu key, you'll notice you can now kind of group things a little bit differently to, say, stock Android. And I actually prefer HTC's take on the app drawer. It's much more customizable, and I do prefer it. But other areas are pretty much the same as stock Android. Again, there's very little difference here in the pull down menu. Even into the settings, it's pretty, it's pretty much stock Android. Okay, so moving on to the cameras on board this HTC 10. Basically, we have a 12 megapixel rear facing camera, and that has dual tone LED flash, so dual tone LED flash. It's got laser autofocus and it's got OIS built in. The aperture is f1.8, so HTC say this is going to be very, very good in low light situations, so indoor or indeed outside at night. It's quite good. It's certainly not the best at low light. I mean, the Galaxy S7 is still going to beat that, or beat this rather, and it's debatable whether this is even better than, say, the Xperia Z5 Premium, but nonetheless it is quite good still in low light conditions. But for day-to-day photography and for basically anyone else who just wants a really good camera on a phone, the camera on this phone is very good. So in terms of your UI, this is, it's fairly standard HTC UI. You've got menus down here, you can flick on and off your HDR. You've got a pull out menu to access things like the Zoe camera, or the Zoe camera, however you want to say it. Panorama, Pro mode, which will give you access into shutter speeds, ISO, white balance, all that kind of stuff, which more and more people want these days. You can of course shoot in RAW format, or you can shoot in JPEG format. So there's RAW and there's JPEG. So it just depends on your personal preference. You've also got of course these different modes. So you've got video, hyperlapse, slow motion, selfie photo, selfie video. So I mean, in terms of how it's going to perform for people, most people will probably still set it to automatic mode, but either way, either in auto or manual, if you know what you're doing, you're going to get very good shots. So just to quickly say focus on something here, and it's very quick to focus. And then in terms of taking a snap, that's it. Another one, or you can long press, I think, and it'll take a series of shots. Actually, if it was in auto mode, it would take a series of shots. So the gallery here, again, it's fairly typical Android, but it is the HTC version on it. You can swipe through. It's obviously Google Photos is the main gallery app, but you are able to change that should you wish. So that's the camera on the back of the HTC 10. Then of course you have this front facing one here. See if we can just get that into focus. There it is there. And that's also quite good. I mean, that's a 5 megapixel 1.8 aperture again on that, and it's also got OIS built in, which is optical image stabilization, which means that as you're shaking your phone, it's going to kind of straighten that out for you, so it looks a little bit better. So that's the two cameras. Battery life is quite good. It's going to get you the whole day pretty much. It's a 5.2 inch display, so it's not going to be too strenuous on the battery despite the high pixel density. And it's a 3000 milliamp battery in that. I would like to have seen a slightly bigger battery and also a slightly bigger screen, but for most people the 5-inch display is better for them because they can access more of the display with one hand. For me, I prefer the slightly bigger phone at 5.5, or indeed even bigger again. It's not all about size though. I mean, let's just talk about that first. It's not all about size. So they say anyway. But for most people, this kind of format is going to work best for them. No real issues in terms of using the device daily. There's no hiccups, no stutters. It's quick. Everything opens pretty much straight away. The fingerprint sensor on the bottom here is good. It's pretty instant. I think I still prefer the the fingerprint sensor to be on the back, because when you pick up your device, you're not going to go like this, swap it over and then put your finger on it. You're going to pick it up and you're going to instantly your fingers here, which is a more natural placement. Or some people use their thumb, but for me, I prefer the sensors on the back. One thing I will say about this device, and it is kind of noticeable, so we're going to talk about it, is that if you drop it, it is definitely going to make an impact on how it looks. So you can see here there's a lot of scuff marks from the very bad journalist who had this before me, who will remain nameless. And you can see there on the bottom, again, more kind of scratch marks again. So you're really going to want to get a case, because the HTC 10, it's not cheap. So, you know, it's a flagship device. You're going to want to get a case. So thumbs up or thumbs down? Definitely a thumbs up. It's a lovely device. My only thing I would like to see different is that it was bigger screen, bigger battery, and slightly better with low light photography. So this is the HTC 10, and this is Ireland'sTechnologyBlog.com. Stay tuned for more news and reviews from Ireland and around the world.